Welcome to a Spa Girls mini tip session. We focus on the burning questions authors have in order to write better and sell more books. Let's go. Congratulations, you have finished writing your first book. So now, what do you do? What do you do? You're in the right place today. Welcome back to the Spa with the Spa Girls, Trudy, Cheryl and Shah, myself. And we are going to discuss today the first timer's guide to formatting your book. So we're going to be taking that manuscript, that all your blood, sweat and tears, and turning it into a file that other people can read, which is really what formatting is. It's a file format that gets your book onto digital devices that work for readers in all over the world, and also a print book, should you decide to do a print book. And it's also really, really important that it creates a first impression of readers of your book. So it must look professional. So we're going to talk today about free tools and paid tools that we use, how to get the book, the Word document or whatever it is, turned into that file format. So where do we go? Where do we start, ladies?
Well, we've got to create that perfect file, haven't we?
Yeah.
So, well, we've got two choices, haven't we? We're going to have an Epub, which is going to be available on a lot of platforms. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the other file is going to be a PDF, which we will use for printing it, to put into a print book. Yeah. Okay, so I think the first thing you have to decide is where you're actually going to publish the book. So we have two major opportunities. There's lots of places, obviously, that you can put your book, but most new authors are dealing with either going exclusive with Amazon or going wide, which is using all the platforms. Now, you don't have to do that singularly. You could actually go to an aggregator, which is a company which will deliver your books to places like Apple and Barnes and Noble and Kobo and Google Play. So that is something that you need to decide on. It is quite important because each of those platforms have their own rules. So in essence, if you do use an aggregator, you are just following one set of rules. If you go to each platform individually, you've got to know what those rules are. In the instance of going to Amazon, there are lots of words that you would put into an Amazon exclusive book that you couldn't put into the other platforms, because they'd be really annoyed if in your book you're actually advertising, in a way, Amazon simply by using the word Amazon. So I think, Trudy, we were talking about earlier about, people talking about Amazon rainforest, that could be a flag to other platforms. So it does bear in mind thinking about those kinds of things. Yeah. And also the links you use. You cannot use Amazon links on any of those other platforms, and vice versa. Yeah. So
which is understandable. If you go to one shop, you don't want to be advertised by another shop in that shop, kind of thing. So.
Exactly.
The easy way to get around that is reader links, or once one, so you can put a link in the back of one book, and back of your book, and have it go to a website or to reader links or something like that, and all of the different places your book is selling. If you're wide. That's what. And
we also talk a bit later about programs that we use that do it automatically. Yeah. So it takes the guesswork out of it.
And I think it's important to say here that for all of us, every single one of us, it was quite a mountain that we had in front of us when the thought of like getting that first formative book. And I think it's really just to reassure you that everybody feels that way, and that you can do it, and that there's some amazing tools out there that we're going to talk about soon. But it's also a mindset as well, and just take it one step at a time, and maybe do it earlier in the day and not at midnight like I did the first time, because everything seems so much worse when and you just think, oh, I'll never get the hang of this. But just think there's thousands of other people that have learned how to do it themselves, so you can do it too.
Very true. Okay, so we've figured out what kind of file you need, thinking about where you're going to publish that file. You've also got your finished manuscript, obviously. The next thing to think about is a cover. So often people get covers sort of, well, in advance of
Mhm.
this process, but you just need an awesome cover that reflects your genre, that is kind of tells people who are looking at it what kind of book they're going to get, basically, like just a book that's relevant, sorry, a cover that's relevant. So
and in going back to what Cheryl said about the right sizing for depending on where you're publishing it, which is another reason that you need to know.
And I think it'd be good to add in here, Trudy, that perhaps we need to create a little file, a little Word document with all of the things that we're going to be talking about right now that you're going to want on hand when you start to go into Amazon or one of the other places to actually add your book details in.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have it
so
all
for
together
example,
rather than trying to find it in different places on your computer.
Exactly. That's a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
And for example, with the cover, I create my files via Vellum, and I need the book, the cover for the inside of the Vellum file, as well as separately to put up on all the different platforms. So
yes,
and when you're changing the cover, for example, and reformatting, which is something we all do, make sure that you change it inside the file as well as on the outside, because that's a trick for younger players. But we're just talking about doing it the first time, not the many changes that are possible in the future.
No, but I think that's also a really good point, though, because the thing is, here's the thing. You can always, and you will be in the future, changing the format of that book, changing the file, the book file. So it's okay. You know, if you make a mistake, everything is recoverable.
yes.
Changeable.
The world is not going to end, even though it may feel like that at 1 o'clock in the morning.
So now you've got the cover, you've got the manuscript. What else do we need? And I think that's you, Shah.
Is that me?
Yeah.
So you are going to need to know what we call front and back matter. It sounds a little bit like brain matter, and your brain will explode probably as we're going through all of this.
No,
but
you'll be
what
fine.
it is simply stick with us, people. What it is simply is those first few pages of your book, your finished book, and the last few pages of your book, and they can include a number of different things, and it's very much like author's choice. I think it's really important to have your copyright details in there. Some authors put them in the front, some authors put them in the back, but for front matter, generally on my kind of own personal list, I would have other books in the series, copyright details. I have a title page where it's got the title of the book in nice big writing. If I'm going to do a dedication to one of my cats, that's where I'd put it. Of a table of contents as well, that is, if you're using one of the tools that we're going to be talking about, it automatically creates that for an ebook. So it will have chapter 1, chapter 2, and it has a kind of a auto link. So if somebody's reading your book and they think, I want to skip ahead to chapter 4, that's how they do it. And maybe a prologue or a foreword, so you know, like a little teaser paragraph or maybe a blurb. So that's what I personally like to see in the front matter.
One thing to think about with the front matter is the look inside on Amazon, for example. So if you have too much stuff in the look inside, then it'll take up the ability for people to read some of your first chapters.
Can you just explain for the first time is what look inside means?
Okay, so if you go onto Amazon, and I don't even know, to be fair, if it's exactly the same on the other platforms. I imagine there's some ability to see something, but on Amazon you can click on the I think it's the cover still and it gives you a percentage of the start of a book,
a sample,
or you can download it
essentially. And if you have your front matter taking up the majority of that look inside, then there will be very little of the actual book that someone can sample. And that's actually a really powerful way to convince people to read your book, is giving them the first chapter or as much of the first chapter as fits in the look inside. So if you fill out the front of your book, for example, I don't put my other series at the front, I would definitely put that at the back. And anything, like just anything that's not that useful or that you just could put at the back, put it at the back would be my advice there. Even I notice it used to be really common that you would have the kind of the blurb or the description for the book that you're about to read at the front, and a lot of authors don't even do that now.
Yeah.
Put it I don't know. I don't put it at the front. I don't even
I
put it in
do,
the book
I do.
anymore.
But I think the best piece of advice here is that as soon as you've loaded the book and you have the ability, because it takes a little while for it to be visible to everybody, is to actually go into your book on Amazon or one of the other platforms and click on that cover and see how it looks. How does it come up to the reader? Is that what you want them to read first? And if it's not, you simply go back to your file and you change it and upload it.
You're so smart, Cher. That was genius.
Yeah.
Just years of practice and lots of books.
Yeah, and look, we've had authors on our podcast for, with our different interviews, and they've talked about how they experiment with different types of what they put in there for that same reason, what Trudy says. So again, just, don't get too hung up on doing it the one right way. The most important thing is that it's professional and it's good for readers to read on their preferred device.
So what are we going to have in our back matter?
Can I just quickly one thing? The other thing I have in my front matter is the newsletter sign up, and I have it at the back as well. So I have it in both places because I'm catching different people at different times.
Good point.
Absolutely. Good point.
Anyway, so back matter. What do we have on the back matter? What are some options? I'm going to read.
We could have your bio. Your bio is definitely going to be in the back matter. And as Trudy said with that sign up link, yes, I do put it in the front, and this is where I put it in the back. And sometimes I'll put it after the end of the book. If after I've sent them the link, given them the link to the next book in the series. So that's also part of the back matter.
I often play with the wording too on that one. So I'll try one lot of wording in the front, and then I'll be like changing it up and doing something different in the back, depending what maybe I'm offering them or what they're getting, or even depending what happened. It's just happened in the book, like something big dramatic moment, and it's a bit of a cliffhanger. Then I'll use that.
Do you want to? Must you find out more? Next? Do you have to find out more?
That kind of thing.
I've seen some authors too, they put in a really clever note from the author, a really well written, and it's not just I'd like to thank my auntie Mabel for editing. It's something like what prompted them to write the book, or it's something really compelling. And I've seen people saying they're buying or they're pre-ordering the next book on the basis of what that author has written. So I think it's really good to go through as a writer and look at what other authors have done in their books and
in your genre.
But also, somebody's got to be first as well. And I'm trying to think of which writer it was. It was a few years ago, and they blew up as a result of that note from
Michael
the author.
Michael Andelay, I've heard he did it at the very beginning, and he wrote this beautiful little, I'm so excited that I was able to bring this book to you, and I love these characters, and he really, I mean, I don't know if that's the one that you saw as well, because it's definitely something lots of different writers have done, but in this particular one, he found that he was getting a much higher read through into the next book as soon as he put this note to his readers that was really personal, that introduced him as an author, but not just a really generic thing. He was like giving them a little piece of himself and showing them how excited and happy and just like amazing it was to be a writer and see people reading his books and talking about the story itself. So it was a way to provide connection. So not something
I think they call it a letter to the reader. So it is trying to create that connection, as you say. And I mean, I think people like Lucy Score do it in a really humorous way, and people just love that. That really resonates with them. So they jump on the bandwagon and buy the next book before it's out. Pre-ordering left, right, and centre. So it, as Shah says, it's changing it up and actually trying different things is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. So we've also got in there sneak peeks for the next book. It could actually be a chapter, a whole chapter. A lot of times we look at maybe something that's very inciting in the book or exciting as well, rather than how the book might start out, because then the person might not buy that book later, but then go on to Amazon or one of the other platforms and think, oh, I've read that, so maybe I've actually read the book. Whereas if it's somewhere a little bit further down but is really compelling, they might just click on it right then and there.
I had one where I changed it up. I had initially had just a piece of the first chapter, and then I changed it to this moment where the characters kiss, and it's kind of like it's sort of an angry kiss almost, and it was just a tiny little snippet. It wasn't even a massive part of the scene, but it was from the next book, and it was kind of intriguing and tantalizing because that was not where the characters were at the end of this book, you know. So you kind of got that thing. So something like that, which kind of made people kind of want to click and find out more, was worked
That's
for
it.
that
It's
series.
all about kind of pulling the people through. So, you know, that's anything you can do in that back when you, because the thing is, if people have read through the book and they've got to the back matter, you've got them, right? You've got that's a real vote of confidence for you that people have enjoyed your story long enough to stay with it. So I think it's really important to think, particularly with the back matter, think very carefully about what it is and what your priorities are there. And as we've mentioned many times on different podcasts, newsletter sign-ups are super important for all authors. So, you know,
we'll keep saying that because it's always going to be true.
We do. We might sound like broken records, but we are.
Well, now we know exactly what we're going to put in our book. Let's talk about the ways that we do it.
How do you get it from that document on your computer to on the Kindle or on your Kobo?
I use Vellum.
I use Vellum.
I write in Scrivener. Vellum. You can actually use Scrivener to format your books, but for some reason I've just never done it, and I put it into Vellum after I've written it in Scrivener. And
I think knowing what you know, it's easier. You don't want to keep learning new things, and I think as a new author that's very, very important. I think take on board what a lot of people are saying about the programs, and you do have to pay for them, but let me tell you, once you get a few books under your belt, the program is paying for itself. I promise you, because the hard work of doing it other ways just really that's your time, doesn't matter.
As someone who tried to do it in Microsoft Word on her first book,
which you can,
some people do.
Like it's an option, but it was hard. Versus doing it in a program like Vellum, it's like night and day.
I would say Vellum would be the gold standard, honestly. It is on Mac only. It's a Mac program.
True.
And
one downside.
So if you've got a friend with a Mac and you haven't, that might be a way of, you know, I'll be doing a deal with them personally. But it is absolutely the gold standard, and it's the gold standard for a reason. You know, it produces really beautifully formatted books.
And it's improving all the time. Like, you know, you want to change up your fonts or the way that the book looks. You can actually do that now, but it is still improving all the time. But I think, Shah, you've got a program too that you
I've got a program that I bought, which I also really like. It's called Atticus, and it's actually for Windows and Mac. So, you know, and this is by a chap who's been in the self-publishing, I mean, him and his team. His name's Dave Chesson, a really standout guy who runs a site called Kindlepreneur, home of Publisher Rocket. But he wanted to do kind of a beautiful marriage of a Scrivener, which is effectively writing software and a writing tool, and Vellum, and that was their goal, and they made Atticus, if you like. It was like if Scrivener and Vellum had a baby, I think is how he described it. And that is a really, really good alternative for those of us that work on Windows, is Atticus. We're going to put links to all of these, so you don't need to worry about writing down too much. But as I mentioned before, Scrivener as well is another tool that can produce ebook files, Epubs. I've heard mixed reviews. Some people love it, some people don't. And as Trudy said, Microsoft Word. So those, and as an Adobe girl, Adobe InDesign would be the professional, like particularly if you're doing some really complicated illustrations, like books with a lot of tables and charts and that kind of thing. Probably Adobe InDesign, which is the professional book formatting
but it takes a lot
program.
of work to know
if you've got Adobe Creative Suite, that would be the way to go. Or it might pay to get somebody that knows how to use Adobe InDesign to do that one for you.
And you can do that anyway. Like you can hire a professional to
you can do that.
All of these things.
And if you're doing like a complex book, like I said, with a lot of illustrations, and if it's just a one-off project, then I think maybe that's the way to go, you know. But as Cheryl said, if you're doing this for a part-time or a full-time career, then being in charge of your own formatting, having a program that works for you, investing in that, and I would say if you're a Mac user, go Vellum. no question, then it's worth it because it pays in the long run.
And also the big deal with hiring it out to somebody else to do, which is fine, it takes all the headache away. But we've talked about it before, you will want to change links, you'll want to add new stuff, you'll want to, change reader magnets or the blurb or whatever.
And often
you can
people
do that
change
in Vellum
covers,
just
that
like
kind of
that.
thing.
You're not paying anybody else to do it because it's all part and parcel of the program. But I did want to also mention that another free tool is also on Readsy.
Yes.
So if it's your first book and you don't have the funds to look into somewhere like Vellum or Atticus, then definitely have a look at Readsy, and they have a lot of free stuff there. I've never tried it. I don't know how easy it is to use, but I've heard that it's successful. So
and the same
Draft to
Digital.
Draft to Digital, yes, which is the aggregator that we were talking about before, that you could load your books to all the other platforms.
And Amazon themselves have Kindle Create as well. So like I said before, we're going to put the links to this, and there's no shame in starting off on one of the free ones and then moving on to a paid one as you sell more books. So
or keeping with it if you prefer the free one, like who knows,
whatever works for you.
But just know that I think for a lot of folk, particularly those that are maybe a little tech node out kind of thing, or maybe don't consider themselves particularly technology friendly, it can be overwhelming. But just know that you can do this, and that there's we're putting some really good links. We've got a podcast that we did, What to Do When You Finish the Book, where we talk about a lot of this a little bit more. David Coffrin, who's a author and commentator, he's got a really good blog post, which you're going to put in the show notes, as well as Kindle Peruse, how to format a book. So really all the information is there for you. So it's just a matter of working through it, going through what we said, and we believe you. You can do this.
Yes.
You can do
Awesome.
this.
I think that's us done, is it not?
Yeah, I think so.
Done for another episode.
We have. We have.
Awesome.
Keep listening to us, and then we're going to tell you how to sell the book once you've formatted it.
Sounds good.
See you all.
Thanks
for listening. Bye.
Bye.